I am a digital artist. Yes, I use sketchbooks, and you have seen me use them several times. But whenever I create a big illustration, stickers, do commissions, or make prints, I use my iPad with Procreate. But today, I'd like to go back to basics, spend some time making traditional art, get messy with acrylic paint, and see how well I'll do without having the option to use an undo button. As the first step to ease into everything, I decided to do a little warm-up challenge. I divided a sketchbook page into 4 sections, chose one reference photo, and painted it 4 times. The catch was that I only gave myself a limited time to fill each section: 2, 5, 10, and 40 minutes respectively. No matter what, when my time buzzer went off, I had to stop painting and the picture was done. As you can imagine, the 2-minute painting was rough. The paint didn't have any time to dry, even though acrylics tend to dry very fast. I didn't even clean my brush in the process because that would take up valuable seconds. That's why the colors ended up looking so muddy. But it was a nice way to get the feel of the composition and the main shapes. Having 5 minutes for the next painting felt like such a luxury. I allowed myself to clean my brush this time, which resulted in much brighter colors. I didn't really get the water to paint ratio right though, so there was a bit of a streakiness issue, but overall, there was an improvement from the first attempt. Learning from my previous mistakes, I made sure my paint consistency for the 10-minute painting is right. I paid attention to the sky area and added the fluffy clouds that can be seen on the reference. I also concentrated more on the way the green areas look and how the sun hits them from the top, and made a little green gradient. The peonies were finally starting to look like actual flowers. I was very happy with this attempt. But it was time for the final challenge. At first, I thought I'd give myself 30 minutes, but then decided I will stop when I feel like I'm done and let the paint properly dry between the layers. The final time for this painting ended up being 40 minutes, including drying time, so I wasn't too off with the 30 minutes estimate. I applied everything I have learned from the previous attempts. I made sure the paint has the right consistency, I rinsed the brush properly, and paid close attention to the green hues of the foliage. I also allowed myself to add more details like the individual leaves and peony petals. I didn't want to overdo it though, as this was only supposed to be a warm-up. The idea of this challenge was to get more comfortable with the medium and start with something non-intimidating so that I can move on to the bigger pieces with more confidence. And here I am learning another valuable lesson. The tape I used for the edges likes to tear the paper. A way to fix this is to use a hairdryer to melt the glue a bit before you unpeel it. It was really good to learn that before I moved on to the bigger pieces. After the warm-up, I wanted to paint an actual finished illustration. I got myself a Strathmore mixed media paper pad to paint on and divided the full sheet into 2. So I'm using a half of the original size here. I wanted to try an underpainting this time. Whenever I paint something digitally, the first layer is always a solid color, usually pink, which I then paint over with the final colors. This makes my colors more cohesive. I had to try whether this will also work for my traditional art. I always like painting nature views, so I chose this forest-like scene for this attempt. I first outlined the big colorful areas and tried not to dive straight into the details, as that is something I like to do when I'm working digitally. I went for way brighter colors than the reference and just let the brush lead the way. I enjoyed working on this piece so much. It felt very meditative. I was spending time on fresh air. The birds were singing. The sun was shining. I was at peace. I could see myself doing this more often, or even having a daily relaxing painting session. I absolutely despised acrylics. Yeah, the excitement might not have lasted, but we will talk about that in a moment. For now, let's go back to the forest piece. I love the way the pink underpainting showed through the other layers. It makes the piece feel more magical. I also restrained myself from adding too much detail, which I normally would do on my iPad. I just feel like I left it at the perfect moment, and I'm very happy with the final result. The tape peeling still wasn't as satisfying as it could have been, but at least I didn't tear the paper. Another challenge awaited me. This time, I wanted to concentrate on painting subjects I would normally draw digitally and see how I'll do with acrylic paint. A house, a bowl of fruit, a portrait, and a scarf pattern to test my precision. I decided I will go even smaller than my previous attempt and cut the original Strathmore paper into 4 sections. So I had 4 little canvases to work with. That was a bad idea. Since the pink underpainting worked so well in my previous attempt, I used it for all the small paintings as well. I started by painting this bowl of red currant photo I took, starting with the big shapes first. I thought I'd have a system. Since the paintings were so small, I could fit 2 at the same time on my little painting board and switch between them when I'm waiting for one of them to dry, or use similar shades on them so that they're coherent. Though my currant was looking more as a soup than fruit at this point, I felt like this was a good starting point and moved on to the next painting. This time, I actually didn't use a reference photo that I would strictly follow, only some inspiration photos. I was feeling confident and thought I would be able to just conjure the painting out of my imagination without any preparations, but that soon proved to be false. Things weren't going as I imagined. Plus, the sun started to hit the spot I was painting in, and it became unbearably hot. So I decided to not push myself any further and called it a day. The next day, I felt inspired to start working again. Plus, I came prepared this time. I did a quick sketch of the composition in my sketchbook and decided to follow it instead of not following anything. Things went better this time for sure, and I was easily able to change the composition a bit. If there's anything I love about acrylics, it's how easy it is to cover things up. I had a nice base for both of the little paintings, so it was time to move on to usually my favorite part of the art process, adding as many details as I could. And this is where the issues started. I quickly realized that painting this small was a mistake, as even my thinnest, tiniest brush couldn't give me the details I wanted. Combine this with the paint being quite thick and me being unable to thin it out with water in any way that would allow me to make opaque but continuous lines, and you can probably see how I was getting frustrated. I was especially unhappy with the way the red currant was turning out, because I knew exactly how I would paint it on my iPad or even using markers. But the acrylic paint just didn't want to cooperate. What helped was adding blue tinted highlights to some of the currants. I think it gave them a bit of life. I rendered the background a bit more, and after a while of frustrated fiddling with the leaves, I decided that whether I like it or not, this painting is finished. And I'm moving on to the house. The house was okay, I guess. The process was full of little corrections and painting over things. I didn't really know what to do with the patch of grass in the front of the house. Compared to my sketch, I left too much space there. In the end, I just filled it with flowers. The roof details were quite fun. The stone texture at the bottom, not so much. And the little details around the window were an agony. Never again will I work this small with acrylics. But eventually, we got there. 2 down, 2 to go. Seeing how things went with the house, I decided to prepare myself better and picked some more specific references this time. I took a lot of photos during my recent Czech folk museum visit of all the gorgeous traditional clothes and scarf patterns they had there, and was eager to paint something inspired by them. I went with a girl profile and a scarf with traditional patterns. Well, you've seen the snippet already, you know what's coming. I started my painting session very late at night, feeling a bit hungry, thinking I'd just quickly finish these, have my dinner, and go to bed, no problem at all. However, while continuing the portrait, I realized that things are not going as fast as I expected, and what's worse, I hate the way it looks. I absolutely despised acrylics at this point. I was cursing at the fact that I can't rest my hand on the surface, that I have no easy way to get rid of a line that I just painted, that it was leaving paint marks everywhere, how much space it was taking up, that I have to clean my brush between colors. It was a lot. I was just so done with everything and frustrated with myself for not being able to finish one simple portrait. So I stopped, went to eat, feeling defeated. Of course, when I slept on it, I felt way better and a new feeling of determination has awoken in me. I will paint this goddamn painting no matter what. You can't stop me, silly acrylics. I committed to this project, so I will finish it. I sketched the painting compositions with a pencil this time because winging it just wasn't working. And then I just did it. Without any expectations, nor the desire for a perfect outcome, I just sat there and painted. I tried very hard to live by the words, done is better than perfect, because perfection is an unattainable state anyway. Nothing will ever be perfect. Yet I still often yearn for it. If the thing I made isn't exactly the way I imagined it in my head, I can't help but blame myself. I didn't try enough, I didn't give it enough time, I don't magically have all the skills needed. This is the reason why I'm often scared to try new things. I feel like if I'm not good at them right from the start, it's not even worth trying. I know, it sounds super silly, but I'm trying to battle that fear and to push through the discomfort. Let's be real. Acrylics are still very close to my comfort zone as it's a paint medium and it's not like I never painted traditionally, but small steps count too. The portrait and scarf painting aren't my favorite, but they make me feel accomplished. When I look at them, they remind me that I can do things even if they're hard, and that's great. What's also great is that I finally figured out a way to peel the tape properly, so I can give you a satisfying peeling video at last. But this is not the end. There is one more thing I wanted to prove to myself. That I can finish an acrylic painting on a canvas. I dressed up for the occasion, took out my easel, and prepared my... No, wait, that's not it. This is my canvas. I know, the size of my canvas board is almost funny, especially when it's on the easel. But if you compare it to the paintings I did before, it's almost twice as big as the lake scene. So definitely a challenge. I chose this photo my mom took because I loved the view and thought that ending with the scenery might make me feel a bit better after the 4 small painting struggles. As always, without thinking about it twice, I started with my pink underpainting. I was so used to the smooth paper I was working on before, I completely forgot that a canvas has a texture. I should have used gesso as the first coat so that it makes the board a bit smoother and the painting process more comfortable for me. I debated whether I should start over, but I already had the composition down and I really liked the colors. So I decided to take the canvas texture as another challenge to overcome. Look, I won't lie, some of the areas were a bit rough, but I liked it. And what's more important, I enjoyed working on it. I blasted the Favorite Worst Nightmare album, and its energy gave me the perfect mood to finish this. I actually repainted the little red house several times, as it was supposed to be the focal point and therefore should look the way I wanted to. A bit scared, but very determined, I added the foreground trees. I tried to not have any expectations again, but they actually turned out way better than I thought they would. I love how they framed the view. The thing I enjoyed the most on this painting was adding the foreground foliage. It's just little blobs that vaguely resemble leaves, but it works so well. There were only a couple of details left to add and the painting was done. And I'm actually very happy with the way it turned out. The unfortunate thing is that it's hard to take pictures of it because of the canvas texture, but that's just something to learn from for the next time. The question is, will there be a next time? Will I give acrylics another chance? Or am I just done with them and will stick to my iPad? Looking back at all these paintings now, I feel very accomplished. And I definitely enjoyed parts of the process. So I am willing to give them another try. There are a few things I should keep in mind for the next time though. So Dear future me, don't be afraid to use bigger formats when painting so that you can do all the details you desire. Don't try to paint when you're hungry, tired, anxious, or feel under pressure. You're gonna hate it. And don't stress about the result. Just enjoy the process. Do you have any more tips to give me? I'd love to hear them. And if you'd like to see more of my traditional art, go watch this video.